is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Locked Up with David Matlock, the safe space for the sports nerd. And today we will be talking about my favorite team, the Atlanta Falcons. And I will try not to cry or get extremely angry the entire video. So let's hop right to it. Okay, we're going to be covering sort of how the season went, the new hires that we just hired a new head coach, a new GM, what I expect going forward from the team, and what to look for in the draft because the draft is very important for us this year, especially because we got the fourth overall pick. So there's a lot to look forward to in Falcons football. And by looking forward to, I mean clutching our pearls and hoping that everything at least does not end in a fiery ball of disappointment. But I think these hires are really good. So the Falcons recently hired Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot for head coach and GM respectively. Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator under Mike Vrabel at the Tennessee Titans, and he had a very good offense. Granted, that team sort of collapsed in the second half of the season, but it wasn't his fault. It's because the Titans had the worst pass rush in the entire league. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. They could not generate any pressure, but Arthur Smith had the team second overall in red zone efficiency, and guess what the Falcons were? 26th. So this is a huge upgrade for the Atlanta Falcons, especially seeing how much we've invested in the offense and how little we have been able to maximize it. We finally have decided to go forward with an offensive-minded coach. So this is a very good hire, and I would give this at least a B plus, A minus. Only B plus because Bieniemy was on the table, but I don't know necessarily. He still doesn't have a job, so maybe there's something going on behind the curtains I'm not aware of. And also, I'm just trying to temper my expectations because expecting anything from this team is setting yourself up for failure. All right, and then Terry Fontenot was hired as the new GM. He was recently working in the Saints organization under Mickey Loomis. He had been in the organization for 18 years. Mickey Loomis actually said that he was going to be his successor once he had finished his tenure as GM for the Saints, potentially retiring. I look at these hires, and I'm finally excited for the people in charge of the Falcons again. I think Arthur Blank's always been a solid owner. I think he's just too nice of a guy. Dan Quinn was just such a nice guy, and he really was a player's coach. And it's really hard to make that hard decision to say, you're bad at your job and we need to move on, or this partnership is just not working out. Like, it was hard to do, especially for a guy who took the Falcons to their first Super Bowl in 5 ever. But it had to happen, and I'm very, very pleased with who we got because I know a lot of people were like, hey, maybe Raheem could stick around, and I think Raheem did a good job enough to get potential looks as a coach elsewhere. We needed to clean house. It just had to happen. We needed a new look. We need an offensive-minded coach. I'm tired of defensive-minded coaches running this team when we spent so many draft picks on the offense. Okay, calm down. All right, so Tennessee was 5th in second half scoring versus the Falcons being 24th in second half scoring. So maybe we're looking at games being a shootout rather than us sprinting far ahead and praying to God that they don't catch up to us and slaughter us in our rooms. So the biggest thing for the Falcons is that we have not been able to finish. I think that is honestly just household knowledge at this point. If the Super Bowl wasn't enough, watching the Cowboys come back and beat us because we don't know how the special teams rules work, or watching Nick Foles come and slang his large appendage and beat us down with the Chicago Bears. Okay, but these are solid hires. Tannehill was a floundering quarterback. Tannehill was a 6th overall pick who was looking like a borderline bust when he was down in Miami under the great Adam Gase. And Tannehill was turned into 1st overall in quarterback rating last season. And this season he was 5th overall in quarterback rating under Arthur Smith. So I think this is really a good coaching gig catered towards Matt Ryan. This is a very, very, very good hire. And he recently said, we have a lot of playmakers now. And he said that Matt Ryan is the ultimate pro. And in his press conference, he talked a lot about Matt Ryan and how he thinks he can use him, and saying we're not going to just do the same things with Tannehill and do it with Matt Ryan because they're not the same player. Go figure. Matt Ryan is a guy who's been well established in this league, and I think he understands that Matt Ryan does like to have play action. Matt Ryan can't just be in the pocket sitting around for forever because he's not some spring chicken. He's not going to be able to go get you 15, 20 yards on a scramble like Lamar Jackson. So I think, especially looking at his statements, it's like the organization itself is saying, maybe we don't hit the absolute demolition button yet. Maybe we don't hit that just yet. Maybe we start setting up the workspace. Maybe we start getting some building materials. But in terms of going nuclear and blowing up the Matt Ryan, Julio Jones duo that we've all loved and enjoyed watching, maybe we just ride this out. And I think it's honestly the financial best decision, because Matt Ryan takes up $48 million in dead cap if we trade him. Julio Jones takes up $38 million in debt. That's oh my God. That's what I think it's $86 million in dead cap space that we lose by trading these guys. We can't do that. We would literally have an entire team's cap space from two guys if we just got rid of them. So we can't do that. And I think it's smart to say, hey, we have pieces here. We can do something with this. Granted, on the other side of it, Fontenot said that no one should feel like they have a guaranteed job. I think him and Arthur Smith are basically saying accountability is going to be top tier, is going to be a top priority, because Dan Quinn was a player's coach and he really cared about the guys, but we just saw people getting away with too much. Duke Riley, why is Duke Riley still on the field? Why was he still out there running around? Didn't know he couldn't recognize a pass from a run to save his life. Vic Beasley had too many chances. Deidre Sanat, I don't even know what that Dimitrov just wasted a pick on Deidre Sanat. But Terry Fontenot, he was saying that they're not afraid to add the best player at a position that they have a lot of talent at. So I'm thinking, no way we draft another receiver, right? Like, that does not happen. But maybe we add another linebacker. Maybe we add another cornerback, or maybe we go for the backup quarterback. I think the backup quarterback of a very talented guy like a Zach Wilson or a Trey Lance is very possible, because, I mean, again, Matt Ryan's not young, but you don't want to say, all right, calling it quits. We're just going to go nuclear. I think this is the right decision. But Fontenot led a Saints team, helped in the front office of a Saints team that was fifth points per game for the defense, fourth in yards per game allowed by the defense, and eighth in sacks. And I think what Fontenot brings that we have been lacking very desperately is someone who understands how to recognize talent and someone who understands how to get that talent in the trenches, which is a aspect that we have really struggled with. I mean, we have wasted so many picks on defensive linemen that have not panned out, and they continue. We still have guys that are not panning out, and we pick guys off the side of the street who play better than a first-round draft pick, or play more than Marlon Davidson hasn't even played. So I think these were solid hires, and I think the direction we're going in is already off to a great start. That being said, looking back on what we had before, anyone who's complaining about this hire obviously didn't have Dirk Cutter deciding to run the ball up the middle of the field every play. So I think Arthur Smith is going to be able to incorporate a better run scheme for us. Granted, we don't have a Derrick Henry like Arthur Smith had at Tennessee. Derrick Henry had more yards alone than the entire Atlanta rushing core. So that's not going to happen. But what that does tell me is maybe the second, third day of the draft, we start looking at running backs. Maybe we pluck a guy like a Najee Harris or a Javonte Williams or a Trey Sermon from Ohio State. Maybe we start looking at those guys, because a dynamic rush attack is something we have lacked. Like, we've been desperately missing it. The last 1,000-yard rusher was Devontae Freeman in 2016. Like that, Matt Ryan works best when he has people who can take pressure off of him. Matt Ryan can play here. Like, I want people to not forget that Matt Ryan is one of the best at marching the ball up the field in the final minutes of a game, but we put too much pressure on him. And I think Arthur Smith would give us the ability to run the ball effectively, but that is going to require getting top tier talent at the running back position. And of course, we're not going to use that in the first round, but looking at the draft, what we need a center. So this was from Sports Illustrated, and I kind of have some disagreements. They think we need a center. I think we have to give Matt Hennessy a chance just to see how he looks. Because Alex Mack probably played his last game. D line is for sure a top priority, and my thing is I know everyone wants Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or Trey Lance, but I'm telling you guys, we need an edge rusher. And you know who is a really tantalizing talent that could still be available if we were to trade back with like the Lions or the Bears or the Niners? Maybe not the Niners, but actually probably the Niners, is Gregory Rousseau from University of Miami. The man is 6'7" and 265. Go get him. That's who you need on the edge. That's who you need. We need someone like that. We need a guy who can impose fear on the offensive line. We need a freak off the edge, and he opted out of this season, so he's not really under the radar, but in terms of being in the spotlight, he didn't really have that since he opted out. But this is a guy that we should 100% be looking at. He should be number one on the draft boards. I don't care about quarterback. If he is there, 6'7", 265, maybe wait to see what his pro day and his combine numbers look like. But I'm telling you, we need to be looking at him. Or we could look at potentially going for linebacker and Micah Parsons from Penn State, who also opted out. This guy could kind of be like he could be like a Luke Kuechly type of guy. That's kind of his ceiling. Or he could just be a solid linebacker in the rotation who can come up and generate pressure. He's 6'3", 245. He could come off the edge. He could blitz. He can play between the hashes. Not necessarily the best at changing direction. He might have to lose weight in terms of what sort of scheme we run. I don't know if he's the quickest, but he's a physical guy. We need physical players on the defense. So yeah, like I'm just not sold on going for a quarterback first. Taking Rousseau into consideration, there also is Patrick Jones from Pitt. Or maybe Fontenot says, we have guys at tackle. We have Caleb McGarry and Jake Matthews, but I want to be better. Penei Sewell from Oregon, who is looked at as potentially a generational talent at tackle. If he's available, I would not complain if Terry Fontenot says, I'm going to get him. He's 6'8", I believe 330. He is a monster of a human being. And if we want to get better in the trenches, I'm not going to complain if we have a Caleb McGarry on one side or a Penei Sewell on the other side. Or if Sewell beats out McGarry and we have Jake Matthews and Sewell. I mean, what a O-linemen are having a guy like Penei Sewell is a premium to have, especially if you want to have that run game. And I think it would be interesting to watch if they do go for Penei Sewell, because Arthur Smith he's used to having the solid O-line guys. Like he had Taylor Lewan. I think the Titans is one of the best rushing attacks to not have a guy make the Pro Bowl this year, but it's a solid offensive line and we need solid run blockers. And I think Penei Sewell could offer that if that's what we're looking for, or if Fontenot's looking for. But personally, I would like us to get an edge guy. I think if we were to trade back and go for Gregory Rousseau, it would be a steal, depending on how his combine looks. But I'm just saying, the guy got 15 sacks in his redshirt year. You don't come by that often. I think the only other person to do that in recent memory is Chase Young. He is a talent. He is a big boy, and we really need pressure. We have not had pressure in a long time. I'm tired of paying Dante Fowler 3 years, $45 million to get 2 sacks. Like, that's just not acceptable. That's not acceptable. We expected more, and we did not get more. So, looking in this draft, the second day is going to be very important, because not only looking at what sort of safeties and secondary players are available, because I feel like safeties and secondaries probably going to have to be a lot on the later picks, but they're going to be quite frequent, just because safety and corner, we can't get enough of those here, because they all get hurt or they all just suck. Like, it's never a problem to have too many of those guys, I guess. But I'm also looking at potentially getting a guy like Javonte Williams from Carolina. Just saying, having a Tar Heel, or Trey Sermon. that you could probably get in like the third or fourth round. Or just all I'm saying is we need to get an explosive guy who has been on the big stage, who knows who can be a dynamic playmaker, who can catch out in space, a guy who can punch it in between the hashes or run it to the outside. And I think Javonte Williams and Najee Harris would be the ideal fit. I don't know if Najee's going to still be there, and I don't feel like if Javonte or Trey Sermon are still available in the third round, I say go get another defender. Let's not spend our higher picks on running backs, and maybe we get more picks from trading back, which is the benefit of trading back, because if we trade back, we have more people in some of the earlier rounds to look at. So all I'm saying is the fourth pick is not necessarily to say we're going to get the next generational talent. The fourth pick, if anything, gives us flexibility to decide how we want to go forward with this. And I think the guys that we hired are smart enough and have enough foresight to definitely be considering that as an option. So don't be necessarily disappointed if we don't go out and get Zach Wilson or even get Justin Fields if he's available, because granted, they could go for the next guy in the future, but I think Matt Ryan's still going to be the guy. All right, this has been talking about the Falcons. I'm going to be covering them more in the offseason. I might be kind of closing the scope of the teams I talk about to more of the Southern NFL teams. Definitely going to talk about playoffs, though, just because you have to. I love playoff football. I'm going to be talking about an NBA video soon. It's been a really chaotic just starting classes again, and I'm moving back home down to Georgia. I'm moving out of Chapel Hill, so it's going to be a little messy moving forward, but I'm going to try to get on a more rigorous schedule. So thanks for watching. Check out the link down below for the podcast I recently released. This is the Locked Up Pod on Buzzsprout. It might be transitioning to SoundCloud. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And this has been Locked Up with David Matlock. See you guys later. Honestly, you can keep me.